and I work with people with disabilities, so children or individuals with autism, cerebral palsy, stroke, and so many disabilities. So my role is to ensure that the individuals I work with are functional in their space.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Story Molly. My name is Maureen Murari and this is Story Molly. In today's episode, we are looking at autism. This month, April, has been created specially by the United Nations since 2007 to celebrate and to create awareness around autism and people living with the condition. In today's episode, we'll be joined by an occupational therapist, Light. She'll be talking to us about autism and how better we can support people living with autism at home, at work, and in school. The theme for this year's celebration is transforming the narratives, contributions at home, at work, in the arts, and in the policy making. Welcome. Hello, Light. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Thank you so much
morning.
for having the privilege. Thank you.
I would like you to do a small introduction. Say your name, what are you doing, everything about you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Light Jachike. I am an occupational therapist, and I work with people with disabilities, so children or individuals with autism, cerebral palsy, stroke, and so many disabilities. So my role is to ensure that the individuals I work with are functional in their space or whatever environment that they are independently.
Today and the rest of the month, we will be celebrating or creating awareness for autistic people. So I would like for you to tell us, why is this important? Why should we create awareness for autistic people or for people living with autism?
Oh, okay, thank you. So I think this is since 2007, the United Nations General Assembly picks this day where we get to celebrate people with autism, but most importantly, to actually create awareness about what autism really is, because most people don't know. And then they get to feel, especially in Africa, you say, oh, this child probably has a spiritual problem. And they attach so many causes and so many things to this particular condition. So this day is actually to create awareness about what autism is, to help more people to understand the condition and how this affects even the lives of people, living with disabilities and even autism. And also for us to celebrate their abilities, because these kids or individuals are, they have so much gifts, so much abilities, even in their disabilities. So it's to create that understanding that, more people understand what autism really is.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I like to hear the fact that you're saying we can celebrate them because they are different from what we call normal, but they have their own abilities, and if we celebrate them and then encourage them, they can actually go out there and be themselves and do a lot. There's so many people out there in the world. I've seen actors, actresses who have autistic characteristics but are doing very, very great. Even scientists, I hear.
Yeah.
So, are there some common characteristics or symptoms that we can look out for, and then we can say this person is autistic or this child is autistic?
So autism or autism spectrum disorder is actually it's a broad range of condition that's characterized by challenges with one, social skills, repetitive behaviors or stereotype behaviors, and then three, speech and non-verbal communication. These are three broad areas that doctors, and because it's doctors that give the diagnosis, that they will check out for to know that, okay, this person probably has an autistic characteristic, because the doctors don't make diagnosis until like 2 to 3 years old. So the child develops normally. They achieve this milestone till that time. So it's from 1.5 months, 1.5 years, that's 18 months, that you start to see some differences between, your child and the way they are meant to behave. So they may not make eye contact, facial expression be bland. There are no gestures. So you would see all these things, but then at that age, it's still suggestive until they grow up into like into teenage years, where you now start to see the full blown challenges with social skills. You start to see a lot of repetitive behaviors that are atypical. Then you're like, okay, there's something, fishy here. Let's go check it out. So
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. That means also some conditions can be detected when you're pregnant. That means with autism, it might be a little difficult to actually detect that. Would you know?
Yep. I mean, yeah, because they will grow normally. It's
Right.
not like Down syndrome that you can check from the this thing. But though there are cause, well, there's no one cause, right?
Yeah.
If there is a one cause, there will be a cure. So
True.
there are things doctors will see and say, oh, I mean, you might have autism. For example, there are genetic characteristics. So if there's somebody in your family that's ever had it before, you as a lady, I mean, there are chances that you might have a child with autism. Then there is the age factor, giving birth in old age. Then there are also environmental factors. If it's very prominent in a particular region, then yes, the person is at risk. But to say if you can detect it from birth, though I know that technology is advancing, but I'm not sure we've gotten there yet to be able to detect it from birth.
Yeah, I was checking, and in the US they have, but it's not 100% to detect it when a lady is pregnant, but it's still undergoing research and development. So, what are some of the
Okay.
challenging behaviors you would say these kids or adults have when they have autism?
Hmm. So well, I could say there are a lot. And before I say this, it's for us to understand that there are no two conditions of autism that are alike. So
True.
it is autism called autism spectrum disorder. So it means it's on a spectrum and there are different subtypes of autism. So one child that has autism may not have the same presentation as another child that has autism. So some of the challenging behaviors you might see in some are like self-injurious behavior. You see them biting their skin or hitting themselves or banging their head, any self-injurious behavior to themselves, aggression towards other people, property destruction. So when there's a lot of sensory overload, they scatter things, they throw things, there's tantrums, disruptiveness, and then the stereotype or the repetitive behavior. So these are some of the challenging behaviors you would see with some of the kids or individuals with.
So, for example, you have a child who has this condition and you want to seek professional help. Are there some skills that I would look out for? And what kind of profession should I even looking for my kid, What kind of
Mhm.
profession, what skills should they have?
Okay, so one thing we need to understand that there's no cure for now.
Hmm.
So this condition, autism, is lifelong. So it means that this person would live with it for the rest of their lives, right? So there are a lot of professionals that work with these children or individuals with autism. So as a multidisciplinary team, professionals like the doctors, the nurses, the occupational therapists, sometimes physical therapists, depending on the presentation, then speech therapists, then the special needs teachers. So we work together as a team to treat this condition or to actually see how we can improve the life of this individual with disabilities. So you talked about the skills or the values that the professional needs to have, right? The one thing that the parent needs to look out for is the license, right? The professional, okay, the first thing first is the hospital. You go to the doctor, you get the diagnosis, and most often the doctors refer you to the professionals. There are also cases where parents come to us as occupational therapists because probably they've done research or they've seen that a particular child or parent that had a child with autism worked with an occupational therapist, so they come self-referred, right? So all the cases, if they're nothing like that, parents need to look out for license to ensure that the professional you're going to work with is licensed. There's so many quack therapists or quack professionals that claim to be occupational therapists or claim to be speech therapists, or because they just did a 1 month training or a 3 month training, and in their mind they are self-proclaimed professionals. And this is causing so much damage to the profession, because there are lots of things that then happen because these people are not licensed. Imagine having to go to school for 4 years, 6 years, and how many years to gain the knowledge, not just one off, and then somebody just wakes up because you have shadowed a therapist and you say, I am a therapist. So the parents or caregivers need to watch out for the license. Ask if possible, what is your license, and be aware also of the licensing that is available for the different professionals. And also the qualities of this professional you're going to meet: one, they have to be empathetic, right? Not sympathy. The people or the individual or people with disabilities don't need sympathy, because we call them disabled, because I like to see it like this: we are in a world. Okay, for example, imagine if this world was created for people with visual impairment or the blind, and I am the one that can't see. I am the only one that can see. Do you know that they will call me disabled? Why? Because I can see, but it's not a word created for people that can see. So I will be disabled, and I will not be able to function like the people who are visually impaired. So now we are in this world. So understanding this will help me as a professional to be empathetic, not sympathy, knowing that there are a lot of sensory stimulus, a lot of things that go on, and we need to understand what they are going through to be able to help provide the right care. The professional has to be organized, has to be calm and patient. I can't count how many times I've been beaten. You have to be patient, you have to be adaptable, because we talked about we working in a multidisciplinary team. And you see that so when we set goals and all, sometimes we have to keep changing the goals because we keep seeing different things that come up, right? I can be working on fine motor skills and or handwriting or daily living skills as an occupational therapist, and that was all the child presented with when we first did an assessment. And then eventually there are like sensory processing issues coming up. So as if I am adaptable, I know that okay, I have to now adapt my treatment, like do another assessment and see okay, what is the cause. And so the professional has to be adaptable, you have to be understanding, you have to be dedicated, you have to be passionate. I like to see that we've been committed the lives of special individuals. It's not, I know the money is good, obviously, it's to pay the bills and all, but I like to see it as a ministry, because these are people that have been committed to us to care for, to help them adapt in our world. So there has to be passion for the professional. And also the professional should actually be able to self-advocate. Like today now, it's a day for awareness of autism on all my platforms, or people that I may be able to talk about this condition. That would help people on your timeline or your contact list to understand, oh okay, I've seen something like this, oh okay, and so that they can get the right help on time, because early interventions actually helps them be functional more in
In the
the
society.
society.
Very true. Of course, these kids will need to go to school and they will need to interact with other children in the house. How can teachers and parents support these kids to interact with other children and also to make choices? Because maybe they might have a challenge in making choices in life.
Okay. So we work together as a team. So the parent, the teachers, they work with the therapists, the speech therapists, or the occupational therapists. We set goals, right? And then we're able to now work with the teachers, for example, in the classroom, to say, okay, this teaching method might not work for this child. Why not adapt it to this way? Or why not use this equipment instead? Or why not work in this particular way? Or do this way? So we work closely with the teachers to ensure that this child performs better in school, and also with the parents. So there's a continual program that, okay, as much as we're doing it in school or in the hospital environment or in the clinics, we give like home programs to say, okay, these are things that you can carry out at home, because we cannot be with you 24 hours. So we give programs to say, okay, do this at home, communicate with your child this way. The way I'm talking, you can't do this with individuals with autism. Not all of them are well developed with their communication skills. So sometimes there has to be one word, direction, two words, and you keep progressing based on how much the child improves. So if I want to say, oh, Ade, go and bring that bag, and then go, it's too much. It's with too much overload. So we take the parents, say, okay, bag. If we could start, depending on after we've done assessment, bag, or take back. So like, teaching them how to handle communication, or how to, actually daily life skills. Some of them would not even know simple basic things that you know how to do, how to put on your shirt, how
Right.
to brush your, how to bathe, how to brush your teeth. These things are difficult. So we teach parents, and show them how to, so that they can carry out this same program at home. And then there's that continuous integration in the brain.
I would like to know, of course, we say that autism is presents itself in a range of spectrum. How would I know that I need to take my child to a special school or an ordinary school? Are there some things that I should look out for so that I know this child will not fit in us in a normal school? And should I take them to a special school? What should I look out for?
Oh, I mean, it will be very obvious because I mean, from experience working with this kid. So normally, and parents like to do this. They like to be like, oh, my child has to go to a normal school. They have to go with their peers, their age mates.
Right.
They have to. So, of course, in normal school, they say 5 years stays in this class, 6 years but this kids can't function in that class. Why? Because the way their brain is being developed, it could probably be a brain of 2 years,
Hmm.
right? Where they still have taking a lot of baby steps. So, and they will not be able to function in that class. So you see teachers saying, oh, this child is stubborn, this child does not understand, or this child is not functioning well, cannot even write, cannot even, and so they would want to keep dropping them back. So when you see all this, that the child isn't doing well with communication skills, no, it's not, the child is not socially interacting with their peers. You see difficulties with fine motor skills like writing, like understanding basic, mathematics. You know that there is a problem. And then that's where you know that, okay, I think I need to put my child in a special needs school, because in the special needs school, the programs are tailored made to this child. So we see the kids as holistic, as a whole being. And so I remember I told you that it's not the same. The presentation of one autistic, of a child with autism, it's not the same as another. So what we do as professionals is that we do an assessment based on the goals of the parent and what we have assessed, to come up with an individualized educational plan that is strictly for that child. So we'll have to drop down a lot of things. So I mean, there are curriculums that are already available and in special needs schools, and that is what we work with. And you see the child having to go better, because the goals of the parent might be different. Some will say, oh, I want my child to be good with education. Others will tell you, you know what, I know this condition, so just do life skill. Some will say, oh, I'm very concerned, I want them to be able to communicate with me. So it's based on these goals that we draw up the individualized educational plan for the kids. So you would know eventually, because the signs will be so obvious that,
Hmm.
that you need the child in a special needs school. You talked about, knowing professors, actress. There are some that highly developed, so they can function optimally, but sometimes they need a shadow. So there are trained professionals that we would work with to say, okay, you can help this child in school, not helping them to do their activities, but being there to, okay, when they're sensory overloads, there are therapists that work with them in school. So okay, when they're sensory overloads, okay, you take them to the sensory room, you do the sensory integration activities, and they go back to their classes and they're able to function. So it's understanding that dynamic. So the professionals would actually guide the parent on what's the right step to take.
What is the role, as you are an occupational therapist yourself, what is the role of an occupational therapist in helping autistic children or adults?
Yeah, okay. So occupational therapy is a client-centered health professional that deals with health and well-being towards projecting or improving functions in their daily living activities. That's our major goal, function, to ensure that at whatever age this child is functioning independently. So as an occupational therapy working with individuals with autism, our goal or treatment goal is to actually develop skills for handwriting, for fine motor skills, for daily living skills, right? But most essentially, our role is actually to assess and target the child's sensory processing differences. So I would explain. This means that we combine our senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, balance, and even the sense of our body in space, in order for us to make sense of our environment. We do this, unconsciously. And because that's how we were, you don't even think about it, right? But some of those children with autism may have difficulty filtering this sensory information, and most often it might become so overwhelming, uncomfortable, or even painful. And then there, on the flip side, there are also some that actively seek out this sensory sensation to be able to calm themselves, relax anxiety, or just for pleasure and relaxation. So this is where we come in to be able to, help improve their sensory processing, or their sensory processors you get. So when a person is having sensory overloads, right, sometimes it's incorrectly perceived as a bad behavior, because you don't know. They're like, this child is a bit stubborn. He's not listening. He's not understanding. But because they have to be able to deal with this, sensory overload, sometimes lightning might be too much, and you see them trying to cover their eyes. Sometimes it's sound, just hearing any sound, you just, because it's too much, because this has to do with the brain. It's too much for them to process, because they have to process. Remember, I gave the example of being in a world for the blind, and then if I am the one that can see, I become disabled, because they're all these things coming together. I'm like, which one do I go? This how their brains like, which one am I processing? So what our key role here is to provide, counseling and also intervention to target each of these senses and help the child to be more regulated, because if they are more regulated, they're able to do better in the environment or in school. And then as an occupational therapist, we work alongside with the parents and the teachers, the speech therapists, able to draw up this program based on the individual needs of the child.
In Africa, for example, you mentioned earlier on, most kids, of course, they are deemed as maybe they have been bewitched or they are mad, and we take them for prayer and all these things that we do. What would you advise these parents? Sometimes they have no knowledge to know exactly what is happening to their kids.
Mm. Well, the first thing first is to actually go to the hospital to seek intervention. I know that Africa, we are spiritual people, right? So our first port of call might not be the hospital. It might be, we need to pray, we need to cast out the demon. There's somebody from the village, doing you and all. But I think with so much, with the way the world has evolved, right? I feel like there are awareness, but still not enough. But for whoever is going to see this video, the first part, of course, should be to go to the hospital. But then, even as a rehabilitation specialist or as a therapist, right, in the rehabilitation sector, there are still doctors, nurses that still does they don't know about occupational therapy. They don't know about some would know about speech therapy, some they don't know. So it's still the onus still boils on us as occupational therapists or speech therapists or people in the rehabilitation, body, to actually still do more awareness so people know what we do, because Africa hasn't advanced there yet. We're getting there, but we haven't. But still, the first part of call will still be for them to go to the hospital, at least, because early intervention helps these children to get better once treatment has started. So still going to the hospital to get the necessary referrals, and we hopefully that they will refer, them to occupational therapists and speech therapists too.
Great. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Um, yeah, since today is World Autism Day, I would like to say that generally people with disabilities have so much abilities that we give them credit for. These people are individuals. I want us to see them as individuals like us, right? But they are special, and not treating them like someone who has a spiritual problem or someone who isn't all right. I'll give you a very funny example. So I was working with a child that had autism, and one of the programs, because we were working on social skills at that time, and so we decided that, okay, let's engage this child. We took her to the movies, right? And then, I talked about repetitive behavior. So the one hers was like, she would pick a sound or any, maybe just a line from a song, and she would just keep saying it. So maybe it's ba 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 ba. That's what she would just keep saying while she's rocking, you know. And then she was calm. We had done like the treatment session, so she was all right. It was okay. It felt safe for us to go to the cinema. And then somewhere in the movie, there are like calm points in movies, like when everybody just she just started. I think it was one line I think it was a musical stuff. And then she just started, blah, 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 and then one parent just said, "Who is that person making us? Can you shut up your mouth?" Oh God. I
Oh,
felt like going to go and meet her there to slap. Like, do you think everybody is normal? Do you think everybody is like your child? I would just, but we just had to leave we had to leave the cinema hall eventually. What am I trying to say is that be kind, be
yeah.
empathetic, right? Because you really don't know what people are going through. Let's start with that first,
Sure.
right? So your first part of all should not, blah, blah. And then when we see also parents are actually going through a whole lot, because even the treatment for this is not cheap. Imagine the drugs they need to take, then the different therapies they need to see. And this is life, it's lifelong. It has to be continuous. So showing more empathy towards people with disabilities now, not just autism, even those with physical disabilities, and, showing more care, and also to the government to create more ways, especially in Africa, where people with disabilities, to create a world where people with disabilities can actually also thrive in independently. This has to do with, for example, I see that we've started doing that, like the wheelchair, the parking space for people with physical disabilities. So there's that wheelchair sign, but we can still do more. How many people with disabilities do we have working in our sectors? And there are people that actually function with support or without support. So creating that atmosphere, that environment for people with disabilities to thrive, and also to keep on creating awareness so that people understand that it's not just a spiritual problem, but it's not even something that you caused. It's not a fault of yours, but that it's okay. It's okay. You're doing well. You are it's not a fault of yours, but also to reach out to get intervention for your children or individuals with autism or disability.
Thank you so much, Light, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and sharing your views and what you have done with people with disability, and especially for dealing with autism, because today we are celebrating them. And in the rest of the month, we'll be creating awareness towards that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this episode. We really appreciate you. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, make sure that you do that, and also press the bell so that you can get notifications whenever we upload new videos. Thank you so much again for being with us. And this is Story Molly. Until next time, my name is Maureen Murray. Bye bye. That is very good to know. I would like to know. The question got lost, so I have to think about it. Oh, there's something that you said. Oh my goodness. Right, yeah. And she'll be talking to us how.